sit down. Our speaker, and it's really a pleasure this morning, and a pleasant good morning to everyone. It's nice to have an opportunity to introduce our speaker coming up, because as I reflect back on a number of years, I can remember with our speaker sitting right down and listening to other coaches, and in other words, he's one of us. Came up not only a San Jose State graduate, graduate assistant there, and then moved into high school. He was the high school football coach for 3 years. Then over to the University of California, and from there to Stanford with the Los Angeles Raiders now, then the Oakland Raiders. Even had a year of semi-pro football, and then joined Paul Brown back in Cincinnati for 8 years with Tommy Pro for a couple years out in San Diego. Then his first head coaching job at Stanford, and then of course with the 49ers, and 10 years of just outstanding football. I don't think there's anybody, as you assess all across the country, a lot of football coaches, anyone that knows offensive football and understands offensive football better than our speaker. But always remember that he was sitting right down here, just like you are, at one particular time in his career, and listening to other coaches. And with that perseverance and drive, he became unique to the profession, because the skill in working with quarterbacks, and if you go through all of his past, wherever he's been, it's always an outstanding quarterback that will emerge. Understands pass offense and offensive football more than anyone in the country today. And let's give a warm Sunday welcome to the football coach of the Stanford Cardinal, Bill Walsh. Bill?
John didn't talk about my broadcasting career. 3 years in NBC. I'm going to talk about defense. Well, what I'm going to do, I don't have a major plan for you. I think what I'll do is just draw some plays up and talk about how you do them. And that's probably what you're here to think about. If I've spoken to a clinic before, you've been there, I've spoken a lot about professionalism, your responsibility, the fact that you're the conscience of your ball club. There's a couple of ways to be a great coach. One is the Buddy Ryan method, bullshit your way through it. Remember the day we took apart his defense, maybe you saw it, in 19, I guess, I can't think of the year, we went to the Super Bowl, but he had the 46 defense, remember that? And we heard all about it from him and from anybody who listened to him. And then we shut him out, made 400 yards, 23-0 here at Candlestick. I think that was a championship game. Since that time, the Bears won a championship with Mike Dick as the coach. But my point is, there's all kind of ways to be recognized in any profession. One of it is just pure dialogue and rhetoric, attracting attention to yourself. And that one rarely works. I've never really seen it sustain itself. Typically, you have to produce, whether you're an entertainer or an architect or anyone else. Sooner or later, you have to be pretty good at what you do. So the idea of attracting attention often gets you killed sooner or later. But anyway, let me draw some plays. I think the more I'm around, the more I come to the conclusion that it's not so much the plays themselves, it's how you practice them. And your method of practicing. I don't want to repeat myself. Some of you heard me speak before on the subject, but your job as a coach isn't so much to draw up new plays. Your job as a coach is to find a way to practice those plays that you want to run offensively so that you can become proficient at doing it. And that's the absolute key. It's the organization, it's your ability to impart your knowledge, it's the drilling of what you do, it's a way of drilling and not making it so boring that the players lose their concentration and just waste their time on the practice field. You have to have ways to keep their attention and to the long, hard, dreary sometimes drills to become good at something. And that's really the job of the coach. Now, there are all kinds of things, really extravagant kind of Star Wars plays I could draw that have always excited me. But my honest feeling is that of those 30 or 40 different things we did with the 49ers, 5 or 6 worked. And the bottom line was success of the 49ers was the drill factor, the standard of performance that we had that allowed us to break through the opposition from week to week. You've got to remind yourself as a coach that there's fortune involved, there's luck involved in any kind of competition. And the closer the competition, the more the luck and the breaks mean to the outcome of the game. Also, you remind yourself that there's an ebb and flow to every game and also to every season. Even an ebb and flow to a great season. In 1984, with the San Francisco 49ers, we won 15 and lost 1. The one loss was a regrettable one because our friends, the officials, took it upon themselves to call something on Eric Wright, and we lost to Pittsburgh by 3 points. We won every other game, but there was an ebb and flow to that season. Even during that great season, we had 4 games in a row that were won by 6 points or less, and we were clearly the best team in football. So any one of those 4 games we could have lost, or all 4 of them. I have to think that there was some luck that got us that kind of a record above and beyond maybe winning a World Championship, but I think we ended up at 18 and 1 or something like that. But even in that season, there was an ebb and flow. So I remind you as a coach that there's an ebb and flow. When I say that, it means you can be playing very, very well, flatten out, play poorly, begin to improve, and then play well. Or vice versa. It can work for you and against you throughout the year. Also, there's just flat-out luck that you have to deal with as a coach, the fortunes of the game. And the way you deal with those is the standard of performance that you develop among your players, a state of mind that is developed with the 49ers that was over many years. With you, it could be over many years. The point it is often done in 1 year, but you have a state of mind that you've developed on your team, aside from the talent you have, where the guys are thinking, concentrating, playing as hard as they can, not caving in under pressure, not depending on heroics to win, but simply execute. And that's the bottom line. We, with the 49ers, had any number of spectacular plays with Montana or Clark or Rice or whoever it might have been over those years. But by and large, you saw us execute. In 1988, we won the World Championship, beating the Bengals in the last minute, if you remember, some of you that follow it. We had to drive the length of the field with 3 minutes to go. We took the field. Joe really had nothing to say to the team because they weren't interested in what he had to say. So it wasn't histrionics or inspiration or heroics that won that World Championship. It was the fact that our team had developed such a standard of play that they could execute under incredible pressure. And the pressure of those moments is almost mind-boggling because you can't think straight. I, as a coach, had a hell of a time trying to think straight with the tremendous noise, the tremendous pressure, and realizing in that case it was the last game I would coach for the 49ers, and we depended totally on execution and on a plan. Maybe I can talk about that, and then I'll draw some stuff up. The execution meant that each guy enveloped himself in his own thoughts. He wasn't worried about talking to anybody else. He listened to Joe in the huddle. His mind would be working as he came through the line of scrimmage. And when the ball was snapped, he'd execute because he practiced and rehearsed those things for years. The plays we ran were plays that were part of a plan to beat people in the last fading moments of a game. Those were devised over a period of years, and there wasn't one play called that called for a heroic play by Jerry Rice or a sensational play by John Frank or whoever it might have been. It was simply execute. And so that's the essence of coaching. I think in that play there were, I believe, 9 plays in that drive, maybe 11, I can't remember for sure. Every one of them was a conventional play. Every one of them was a high percentage conventional play designed for most likely a short game. So it meant that we would go the length of the field on 8- and 9-yard gains and use the clock as we did it and have the confidence when the time came as we got to the goal line that we would have something ready to win with. These things had been practiced and practiced and practiced. So Bubba Harris knew exactly what to do when the play would be called. Montana knew what to do, and not a goddamn word was really said. Joe, was an incredible performer, just prior to the winning play, had hyperventilated, trying to call the signals because of the noise of the crowd, and having to do this continuously for 7 straight plays. He looked at me from 40 yards away and did like this. I went like that. So you can see that even in that situation, the greatest player that we have seen was still disciplined to work within the framework of what we did. He was still following a plan as to when we would call a timeout. I didn't know he'd hyperventilate, but tremendous courage this man has. He does this, I do this. He figures he's got to keep going. He can't even talk. He's about to faint. He takes as much time as he can in the huddle before he calls the snap count, gets up, throws a complete pass to Jerry Rice. So this is the discipline you develop over years and standard performance. Every one of those plays was very simple until the last one. The last one broke their coverage wide open when they needed a touchdown with John Taylor. And I can draw that one up right now. But the point is, that's what it takes. So there may be the Buddy Ryans of the world, but the key for you is to remind yourself that it takes patience and organization and concentration on your part to find ways to drill the given individual plays. Find ways to do that where you keep the concentration of the team and that concentration in itself keeps their interest. So execution becomes critical. So let me draw you that play. It's sort of fun because we've used it since at Stanford without great results. What we did on that drive, is this okay? Yeah. What we did on that drive was keep our basic offensive unit in. These are all our terms. Keep our basic offensive unit in the game so that the Bengals, bless their hearts, wouldn't put in their nickel defense. Their nickel defense was good. Their added defensive back was outstanding. They put a pass rusher in that we had a hard time blocking. So, as we've done in other cases, we had a basic formation in the game, and we didn't come up with anything new. In other words, people would think if you're about to play for the World Championship, you better come up with something that they can't handle to win it. Well, in this case, we wanted them in the defense we knew they'd be in. We didn't want to show them any different formation because they may make an adjustment that we wouldn't account for. We didn't want to let them change their percentages of what they did. So we worked with a split end and a flanker, got in a slot formation on a couple of plays, had two backs in the backfield, and played fundamental football to win the World Championship. We'd done the same earlier against the Miami Dolphins, as some of you remember, right? And then same later against the Denver Broncos. But the point is, we didn't outsmart ourselves, and we didn't let them outsmart us. But when they would get to the 10-yard line, they automatically went into a double coverage zone, in which these two people would basically be responsible for the outside receiver to their side. We've all seen it. These two men would be responsible for the tight end. If he released inside, he'd cover. If he released outside, he'd cover. He'd go to the hook. So that's a simple defense that people run. And typically, the weak side backer would blitz. This linebacker would have this back, unless he broke to the outside, then he'd turn him over to him. If he broke the inside, he'd keep him and wall him off so he couldn't get past him. So, a very fundamental defense. We brought our tight end, John Taylor, to this position, so this man couldn't hold him up. They don't practice against that look. Teams don't, especially when they think it's going to be a pass. They practice against the split end. So this man, one of their best players, was ready to rotate. He was ready to come forward against nobody. He sort of isolated. Then, naturally, they thought Jerry Rice was going to get the ball. So away in motion, he went across the formation, which stretched him and widened him. John Frank's job was to release inside and drive at this safety and pivot hook in front of him to hold him. Jerry's job was to somehow get past this man trying to hold him up and get into this position, forcing this man to come over to him. Roger Craig's job was to run a curl pattern right here to occupy him. Tom Rasmussen's job was to widen, force him to go to the hook zone, keep him where he belongs. John Taylor's job was to release outside, nod out, force this guy to keep going, and then go right back up inside. Joe's job was to take 5 big steps, sit on it, looking at Roger to hold him up, Jerry waving his arms to pull him wide, John making an out move to hold him, and right there we hit touchdown pass for the World Championship. Now, that play was designed specifically for the Bengals, although we used it against the Rams, who'd run the same defense as this before. But if you'll notice, when the Dallas Cowboys played the 49ers this year, one of their easy touchdowns was throwing to this man on this exact play. But this man hooked, as we normally do. So that play was taken right out of our playbook and beat the 49ers. That was our halfback curl. So this play won it. But until that time, we ran plays that were very simple, and the execution was there. So now, you have to think about how you get it done. Number one, isolate those things that you believe in you want to do. They better be simple. You better count heavily on execution. Then the tough job is, how the hell do I practice those plays? Well, the critical factor is obviously the size of your staff. It might be just you and another guy, what you can get done. But what we've done over a period of years is isolate the skills that a man must learn to play for you. And then teach those from the freshman or junior high school, if you have that kind of program, which you know is very common in other parts of the country. The junior high program and the varsity and junior varsity program teach those same skills. Now, with the 49ers, Bob McKittrick is probably the best offensive line coach I've ever seen, along with, of course, Zoom White out of the Raiders. His name's Mike. Call him Zoom because of his activities after everyone goes to bed. Bob had isolated 32 skills in the National Football League for his offensive line. My guess is you'll find 6 skills. But the point is, through years of development, we had refined every basic play we run, every defense that's most likely to be seen, or defensive technique. And then we decided we had to drill that in practice. Now, how in the hell can you drill 32 skills? Well, as some of you may know, I've spoken of it before, every minute of every practice is accounted for. Every minute of every practice, every play of every practice is scripted. At Stanford, when we go start our summer and fall camp, we'll have approximately 3 weeks before we play. Every play that is called in every practice will have been decided upon and documented. And the minute we pull the practice out, that play has been scripted. And that's how detailed it is. It's easy to do, believe it or not, but that's how detailed you get. So you know what you're going to do every second. To us, one play is 1 minute of practice. So if we have a 10-minute drill for a team, we run script 10 plays. If we run those kinds of plays often, we might slip in two repeats along the way. But it's a minute play. If you have a 12-minute drill, you have 12 plays, basically. That's the way we do it. But in isolating those skills, we then decide how much time Bob has to teach us. Now let's just say that Bob had, I just throw it out, 600 minutes to teach 32 skills. We know that because we set up our practice, we know exactly how many minutes we're going to give to fundamental work every day. So we're doing it in Stanford, the same thing. So Bob knows he's got 40 minutes in the morning practice and 20 minutes in the afternoon practice to work on those skills. He also knows that any time he works on a skill for less than 10 minutes, he's almost wasting his time unless it's the day before the game or something. And so he knows he's got to give 10-minute blocks for each skill. So he decides how much time to give to skills by having priorities. Prioritize them, and then you set them into your general plan. So Bob is going to work on a short trap, he's going to work on a long trap, he's going to work on a bob sweep, he's going to work on a seal block that day with his guards. And so the short trap's going to get 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. So when he adds it all up, he can tell you exactly how many minutes he's going to have for every skill by the time training camp's over. So we've isolated those skills. Now in your case, there won't be as many, that's for sure, but what the hell would you teach? Just think for a minute, your offensive line, what would you want them to be able to do? And you probably think about, well, we're going to base block, that's for sure. We're going to base block, and then after we've controlled the guy, if we can, we'll come off on a linebacker. So that's a plug block. we're going to gap lock down, we're going to trap, and on a sweep we're going to pull the guard. Well, we've talked about a number of skills and how the hell you're going to coach them. So the key to coaching is isolating the skills, allocating the time, and the learning how to teach the skill. The only way you teach it is something you know something about. So if you're a guy that goes from year to year listening to clinic speakers and deciding on a new offense, you'll never have refined these kinds of things at all. Now you're counting on the good luck, the fortune of the game to win, or hopefully the ebb and flow of the game to somehow be on the upside and beat somebody. As a high school coach, I suffered from that terribly, terribly. Because we went from the split tee to the spread tee to the wing tee all in 1 year. I mean, what the hell am I doing? So the key is, at some point, you decide on what you're going to do, isolate the skills and do it. Now that goes also defensively for every position, and when and how are you going to do it. You also know that you've got so much time to practice. So let's just say you have 14 practices and they're 2 hours long. You then divide on fundamental work, obviously, on group work, on teamwork. So now when you get to teamwork, you start thinking about it. How can you keep it interesting? Well, one of the ways we kept the interest of our players, or still hopefully do, is by talking about situations. One situation is if you're behind with 3 minutes to go and you have to go to the length of the field. That's sure as hell a situation. And so you practice those plays, and the team knows, obviously, through your direction, what you're practicing. All right? The next thing you'll talk about, we've got to practice if somehow we're ahead and there's 4 minutes left in the game and we've got the ball. What the hell do we do? You practice those plays as part of a 4-minute offense. So, 49ers, Stanford, we say we're going to practice a 4-minute offense. And I'm going to be, without a stopwatch, I'm going to be calling out the time to see how much time we can use from the time the whistle blows till the ball's put in play. And our quarterback can hear it, so our team's going to stretch it right to the limit before the ball snaps. We're going to take every second off that clock we can. We're going to snap the ball on set every time, so there's no chance that we'll be offsides, which stops the clock. We're going to run plays where there's very little likelihood of a holding penalty. And of course, we're not going out of bounds. We're not throwing an incomplete pass. If we are forced to pass, the quarterback will run with the ball before he'll take a chance on the completion, because of course the clock stops. In our bowl game of 2 years ago against Penn State, believe it or not, we went into this offense at the start of the second half because Penn State just didn't seem to be able to handle our defense at all. And I decided to take every goddamn second off that clock I could, starting at the start of the third quarter. And we sort of collected our thoughts, went into this mode, and Stenstrom began to pull his team at the line and watch the clock and snap the ball. Our alums were tragically disturbed with the appearance that our team was totally fatigued at that point and could hardly keep their feet, where in fact we were taking every minute off the clock. Well, we ended up scoring, I think, a couple more times that won the game going away. But the point is, that is a contingency plan that you practice so that your team knows it. How many, having been a brilliant commentator at one time, how many games do you think are lost in the National Football League because the coach can't manage the game? The coach has delegated everything away, and he stands there stoically staring off into space, letting a $100,000 assistant decide what a $150 million franchise is going to do. The coach has delegated everything away, and it makes life a lot easier. You eat a full breakfast the morning of the game, sleep well the night before, and make everybody promise they'll do a good job. But the absolute key is the management of the game. When do you go into your 4-minute offense? And what is it? It's the same as a 2-minute offense. Trying to score, here's a way to keep the other team from getting the ball and winding that game down. Now that takes confidence, but these are the kinds of things that you coach. This keeps the players interested, because now they're thinking of a clock. When they break the huddle, they're thinking, boy, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do that. Or your other choice might be to have just a mundane practice of just running the play over and over and over. The guy's getting tired. Cheerleaders are working out over on the other field. They spot them. And they go through the motions to get it over. Thank God we got over another. Well, believe it or not, with the 49ers, the guys were talking about it when they were leaving the field, because at one point, every one of these contingency plans had become critical to them. What do you do when there are 15 seconds left and you've got the ball with one last chance to score? Now, just think in your own mind, what would you do? One person would say, Joe, drop back and throw it to Jerry. Jerry, get open. Another way to do it is what I had to deal with as an assistant coach when I was with the Cincinnati Bengals, and I was calling the plays upstairs, and we had a hell of a football team. We had Kenny Anderson and Bob Trumpet, who you hear about now, but Isaac Curtis and Charlie Joyner, just a great football team. Playing the Raiders, we're behind 31-28, championship game in Oakland. You can remember the Oakland fans, maybe some of you are. I'm trying to look for the black leather jackets. Oakland's got the ball, and it's over. They fumble the goddamn ball, and they fumble it on about their own 30-yard line. And we get it. All of a sudden, we've got a chance to win the game, at least tie it. At least tie it at that point. And the noise is so intense. And I'm trying to call the plays, I can't think straight. The Oakland fans had located where our box was, and were throwing refuse into the box. And the intensity picked up in that situation. They were going to help their team win. So I'm dodging everything you think of. They take these little half pint, they used to be popular, they had those in there. The point is, I'm dodging that, the crowd is screaming, the pressure's on, and I can hardly hear Paul Brown on the phone, and he can hardly hear me. So we called 4 plays. Got nothing. Game was over. So coming back on the plane, I don't tell Paul this, but I'm thinking, never going to happen again. The next time that happens, we're going to have a plan. That's how all this stuff gets started. We'll have a plan, and if it works, fine. If it doesn't, we'll sure as hell feel okay because we practiced what we thought we should do, and we gave it our best shot. So, from that point on, we had our last 3 plays. The last 3 plays we would call in a game if we're behind and we've got the ball. And so we gave some theory to it, some science to it, some execution to know what we're doing. So time goes on. At that point, I personally began to develop the different contingencies that we would use or have to use. Whether it be 1 down to make 20 yards. Obviously, there's short yardage, as you know it. There's a goal line offense when they substitute. There is your offense from I'd say the 15-yard line going to the goal line, running with the ball. If you're running with the ball inside the other person's 15 or 10, you're probably dealing with 2 more linebackers because now the safeties are so close to the line because of the inline that they are served basically as linebackers. So if you haven't accounted for blocking the safeties, when you're on their 10-yard line, they'll make every tackle if they're if they're good football players. So you have to make sure you've got plays designed to where you can account for the safeties from the 15 15-yard line to the goal line when you run with the ball. So that is that's a contingency. When that happens, we'll have a series of plays we call. They're not different. It's not as though each contingency calls for a different bunch of plays. But it's those plays that we select. So as your team gets to the 15-yard line, you look on your game plan for your contingencies. And there's your red zone runs. And now you begin to work through those and feel comfortable doing it. You're not saying, what the hell do we do now? Anybody got any ideas? You know, you don't do that. You've got a plan. And the minute they substitute their goal line defense, you go to your goal line package, which is probably 4 to 6 runs that we would have. You might have 2 or 3. But the point is, all these things are contingencies. And all these things are practice. And when you set up your practice schedule, when you get to team play, you will have basic offense. That's 1st and 10, 2nd down, sometimes 3rd. And that's your guts of what you do. But you'll also have your contingency plans. So every day with the 49ers and Stanford, we have a 10-play series related to a contingency that will occur in the game. So this day, it's our red zone runs. We don't want to throw down there. We have to, but we will. Red zone runs. The next day, it's our goal line off. The next day, it's 1 down to make 20 yards, because that happens. The next day, it is backed up. Now, when we say backed up, I'm talking about when you suddenly get the ball, we all go through it on your own 1-yard line, and they punted you in a hole, or you're on inside your own 5, what the hell are you going to do? There are some plays that work, some that might get you in deep trouble. Your players have to understand the dynamics involved if you're backed up, because they know, by now you've educated them on the fact your punter needs 15 yards to punt the ball. If you squeeze that down, he's got to rush the punt. Your sophomore center snaps it over his head. You've been through that one. He's fearful as hell. Everybody's operating as they normally would, and somebody gets through and forces him to rush the punt. He goes out of bounds on the 20. So the point is, you know when you're backed up, you have to have plays you'll call. So if you get the ball inside your 5, you look at your backed up list. It could be the same as your red zone list. I'm not changing it, but you know just what you're going to call, and your players know that. They know that the ball is going to be snapped on a simple count. You can't afford a penalty. So it's snapped on the same count every time in crucial situations. You're not about to outsmart the opposition. They also know that there will be blitzing from the outside linebackers, or in your case, you may call them defensive ends. They'll be blitzing. They also know that the safety men will be trying to make a stop. They also know that there's probably going to be gap charges by the linemen, because they're going to call a defense that tries to get after them, I would like to think. So if you know those dynamics exist, then you have your plays related to those that you'll call. And your players know it. So, probably every 2 weeks, once every 2 weeks, we get the ball in the regular season on our own 3-yard line and run our plays. We don't even have to scrimmage. It's not like it has to be that physical, but the players have to understand the dynamics of being there and what the requirements are that they do and what they have to do. The ball has to be got past the 5 so we can punt it effectively. And naturally, we can't take a loss, so you're thinking in a very conservative way. You'll have a pass. You may want to fake the run and throw a long one and take your shot. But the point is, you'll have practiced that too. So these contingencies are there, and this is one of the ways you keep your guys interested in practice every day, because virtually every time they line up as a team, they're practicing something. Now, another contingency in the NFL, which is brutal, is 3rd down and 3 yards to go. 3rd and 3 is brutal. Because if they want to stop you from running for 3 yards, if they can do it, unless they're, a great team and you're not. So you're, in a sense, maybe forced to pass on 3rd and 3. If you substitute on 3rd and 3, they substitute their nickel defense. If you substitute and they substitute a nickel, then you may run with the ball. So the point is, 3rd and 3 becomes a critical contingency in the National Football League. Not nearly as much in college, because in college you tend to be able to run for the 3. So we would practice 3rd down and 3 yards to go. So these are the kinds of things. I can go on and on in the National Football League, but in college it's the same. In high school, although you may reduce it, you have to educate your young men to these situations. One, because they'll understand them. Don't expect them to all appreciate them the first year, but I'll tell you, by the 3rd year, they will be talking about it, because the minute you bring the ball back on the 3, they'll say, backed up offense, here we go. U formation, bring in the other tight end, flanker's going to be closed, They'll be talking about it themselves. That's how you educate. That's how you educate your squad over a period of years on these kinds of things. But in the meantime, they're interested in practice. And that's the absolute key. Let me show you what we do with 3 minutes, 3 plays left. We had practiced these kinds of things, and they'd shown up. And we were awful on occasion. Because when we had Steve DeBerg, bless his heart, with the 49ers, if you remember, some of you that age, Steve was not yet a polished quarterback. Later, he's become an outstanding football player. But then, he was trying to do everything we were telling him. I remember a Chicago Bear game. We got the ball one last time. We tell Steve, if this man's open, if this man first, this man second, this is your alternate. Throw it in if you have to. We've got one play left. Steve throws an 8-yard pass to our tight end. Of course, the crowd didn't worry about Steve. They were looking for me. So the point is, it takes time to develop these things. But we played the Bengals, I know, in 1987, I think it was. You may remember this a few years ago, when Sam Walsh, a dear friend of mine and former player of mine and also a coaching colleague for years, made some dramatic errors in his 4-minute offense. If you remember watching that game many years ago, it was a crazy one. The Bengals had outplayed it throughout the game. We hit a couple of big passes to Mike Wilson, but they were ahead by 4 points. And, no, maybe it was 6. I think they were ahead by 6 points. At the end of the game, they had the ball. And Sam made some critical errors in his 4-minute offense. And we got the ball back with 2 seconds to go. Now, all of us had all but packed our bags. I mean, the game was, for all intents and purposes, over. But Kevin Fagan made a tremendous play because Sam had called a run in which he failed to account for that defense I just spoke of. Sam lines up. This was his first mistake by leaving these people open, because we can get guys right off the edge, and they don't have them out there. They're just not going to throw the ball. So it should have been a close formation. But we were in a basic defense. And they had been running a sweep in which these guys would reach block beautifully. The guard would pull on the safety. This man would stop block. This man would come through and try to sort him out. This man would reach. He'd come through and try to get this backer. And they'd hand off the ball to Brooks with tremendous speed and quickness. And that play had worked beautifully. Brooks had gained over 1,000 yards. The play had worked all year. So Sam calls that play. This man reaches to make sure he can cut him off so Brooks can finish. But of course, Kevin is on a slant charge right inside. The tackle doesn't touch him. Kevin makes the stop. And all of a sudden, because of their lack of having basically a plan what to do in a list in front of them so they can't make this kind of mistake. They run a play that should not have been run there. Kevin makes the stop. So, where am I going? Excuse me. I hope I'm not. So, we get the ball. As soon as I tell you who's playing where, you'll know where the ball went. This is Jerry Rice here. So, typically, the Hail Mary play is the last play you'll call. We all heard about it. The commentators tell us. These three men go down, the ball's thrown up, and is batted around, and once every 100 games, they catch it. But of course, that's the only play we see on TV as a replay, right? Over and over, Ahmad Rashad catching it against somebody. So there it is. So naturally, through practice, we had decided that we would try to get them to bring their defense to this side of the field, for their safety to favor it, and for us to have to deal with just two people and the best receiver in the history of the game. They got in their defense. They lined up. Joe dropped back, threw the ball. This man retreated only so far, threw it to Jerry. And still remember the play. Jerry just reached up, caught it. Game's over. We won. Now this has been practiced. This wasn't just something that, what the hell do we do? And Bob McKittrick came over and said, why don't you try one where the guy goes over there? She did. This is practice. So Joe looked at me and nodded. I said, go. I mean, I didn't have to call the play. I mean, I didn't even have to call it. The offensive team knew the play. Now, had that not worked, at least we'd have left the field saying, we knew what we were going to do. We practiced it. It didn't work. It's a low percentage situation anyway. 2 seconds to win a football game. But we knew what we wanted to do. So this is an example of contingency football that every coach should account for. Now let's talk about some plays for that situation. Well, you've seen one. Of course, the one we have ripped people with over the years when we get in that low. If we've got 3 seconds to play, or excuse me, 13 seconds to play, and we're near midfield, the first thing we do when we line up this way, naturally, is throw a slant pattern to Jerry Rice over here. We've done that at Stanford, done it with Kenny Anderson, throwing to Chip Myers, whatever. 3 steps, hit that slant on the move, and you've got as good a chance to get close to the goal line as there is. So the slant, and for us, we would take these two, drive them down the field, he start weight and come out under it. So we go from here to here. This man with 3-step protecting, he'd set down right over the ball 5 yards deep. We'd go to him if we had timeouts, because he can be wide open in his zone. Now with us, this man is split exactly 12 yards. This man is split 18 yards or 3 yards from the sideline. Joe takes 3 big steps. When you throw a slant, a 3-step drop slant, you take 3 big steps and you sit on your right foot. So if I'm quarterback and I get the ball here, it's 3 big steps, and then I sit on that leg right here. If I come from this receiver to this one, I sit, I stay right on it, I look back and shove off of it. So that's 3 big steps without a hitch step. That's one of the skills the quarterback must learn. So the slant should be caught 11 yards deep. That's how it should be caught. If you try to throw 30 of them in practice, 20 of them ought to be 11 yards deep. This man runs slightly deeper, so he opens up a little later. So that is 1 play in your last 3. Okay, the next play would be one in which you would cheat this man over and bring this man in wing-back position. And, believe it or not, at Stanford, we've hit it. We haven't won a game with it. But now, this man's job, being split 8 yards, so there's room outside of it, is to get past this defender and work into a hooking mode in front of the corner. So he's working against whoever's out there on him. At that point, this man, as you might guess, is swinging up the field right here. The quarterback takes 7 steps, very big or small pitch steps, allowing him to get open and throws the ball. The longer he has to wait, the more he has to come back for it. The minute he gets it, he's ready to lateral to him. So that's a hook and lateral. Last year at Stanford, we, as you might guess, had a lot of situations where we were behind. And these were the kinds of things we did. On the other side, if the quarterback sees that this man has really been taken down, he has nowhere to go, the next guy is this one who will hook and this guy who will swing. And he is clear. So if there's a problem here immediately, we come to this situation. So that's another one that we would run. We're in deep trouble on this thing. Next thing would be a comeback pattern that would take this man full speed, this man full speed, and as you might guess, this man 22 yards, plant and come back, and we'll throw him the ball, jump out of bounds, and get ready for one of the other plays. So it could be we go from this to the slant. But the point is, we're going to drive them deep and try to hit that. Now that takes 7 steps and a hitch step. The key for the comeback pattern is that the ball is thrown as the receiver plants his inside foot. It's probably the most underestimated or least appreciated play in football is a comeback. Most teams run it too short, but you time it so that the ball is in the air when the receiver's inside foot is hitting, so when he looks back, the ball will be on its way. On out patterns, the ball should be a third of the way there. So when the receiver plans to look back, he looks for a ball. He doesn't look for the quarterback. He looks right here because the ball could be right there. Now this you take and spend practice on. Now obviously this is isolated to the last minutes or seconds of a game, but let's just talk about a comeback pass that we would run. In our case, when I talk about these things, I'm not assuming you guys say, okay, and they get little Freddie Epstein, and then they have him take 7 steps and throw the ball to little Johnny Shiminovich. Not a lot of speed in the Shiminovich family, and Epstein did not have the greatest arm in town, so it may not be a major factor for you. All I'm trying to do is help you look through your own inventory for those things that are best for you. So, on a comeback, just isolate this man and this man. This man sprints at the snap of the ball. If he's held up within the first 10 yards, we will then be ready to throw to the other side. But we don't like doing it. He sprints full speed. So typically what you want out of a receiver is sprint hard, lull, and burst. The key to any pass pattern is a burst at the end of the pattern just before the ball's thrown. If, as you watch your receivers releasing down the field, if they're beginning to slow down and check up and break, the defensive man, you have to assume, is slowing down, checking up, and covering. So if I'm a defensive back, it's not verbal. I'm not thinking, oh my boy, slowing down, I think I will. No, it's non-verbal. It's just a response. So So if that receiver is slowing and breaking, the defensive back slows and breaks right with it. So the key is, just before the break, you duck your head and pump your arms hard. Now this is how Freddie Veletnikoff became a great receiver. If you ever watched his play in black and white, by the way, if you watched his play, he gave the impression of bursting and then breaking everything he did. So if you're watching from behind, he found a way, the last 5 yards, to have his knees pumping, his arms pumping, drop his head and then plant and break. And breaking, the defensive back slows and breaks right with it. So the key is, just before the break, you duck your head and pump your arms hard. Now this is how Freddie Veletnikoff became a great receiver. If you ever watched his play in black and white, by the way, if you watched his play, he gave the impression of bursting and then breaking everything he did. So if you're watching from behind, he found a way, the last 5 yards, to have his knees pumping, his arms pumping, drop his head and then plant and break. Now what you like to think is at that point, the defensive back goes, whoa, and he breaks. So if you get that defensive back on his heels, at that point, you have beaten him. But if you slow down to do it, he slows down to do it. So that's the start. Let me try to, I'm going to break this machine, I think. Okay, let's talk about how we would do this. So we sprint 200 meters, sprint break. The last 5 of any pattern has to be a first and a break. And that, as a coach, is something you can help any receiver with, not just less talented ones. Any receiver, you first and break. Your head drops, your arms punch, you plant, you break. Quarterback takes 3 big steps. In practice, the biggest he can take. And then the 4 quickest he can take. That's a 7-step drop we've all heard of. The 3 biggest, the 4 quickest. The key will be to push from center. Don't worry so much about their feet, because some will push and go, some will shove off. That right there will drive you nuts trying to break a habit of it. It's not worth it, I found over some years. The key is to push and get 5 yards on the first 3 steps. If your hips turn 3/4 away from the ball, you're okay. So you don't have to sort of back this way. You'll get the hell out of there as hard as you can. You want to get clearance between the quarterback and the guys blocking for him, and hopefully not the guys rushing. So you know your guys are going to give some ground. You know they're going to shove them. You want to get as much clearance from that as you possibly can, as quick as you can. First 3 steps, as big as you can make, driving back. Now once you've got those 3 steps completed, I'm telling you, you're going. Now your problem is to slow down. So you take the 3 biggest, and then the 4 quickest you can take. That's the key to it. So you've got your depth on 3, you're recovering on the next 4, and you end up, depending on your guy, 9 to 11 yards deep. We want our guy between 9 and 10. At the end of the drop, I don't have a football here, but at the end of the drop, we want to be able to bounce and throw. Well, if you don't take those 4 quick steps, when you get to the end of the drop, your inertia is going this way. One muscle group is saying go this way. You're trying to get the other muscle group to go that way. And you're skidding back, trying to think you're going to throw a pass. Typically, your body weight's back. You're throwing off your back foot, and the ball is going to drop short by about 8 yards. So it's key for us that at the end of the drop, we bounce. Now, if you watch Joe Montana, this took me some years to figure out which something he did that I didn't coach, he just inherently did, was at the end of his drop, I'm going to strangle myself up here, at the end of his drop, there is a bounce, straight up and down. He's helping himself get rid of that inertia that's pushed him back. So right at the end, you'll see Joe's head pop up, and I'm sure you've all seen that beautiful style of his. For years, I coached Dan Faust, Kenny Anderson, these kind of guys, to stay low, bend their knees, and stay down in here. Well, this last year, I had Joe out demonstrating, which is strictly legal, John, during CLAA, freaking little. I had Joe demonstrating with our quarterback being some distance away. Please understand me. And Joe was bounced into throw, and then suddenly, there it is. So now, Steve Stenstrom bounces and throws, and boy, he's being picked up like that. So that bounce coming off of it is absolutely critical, and that's what Montana has done for football. So the key is, the three biggest steps, the four quickest, a bounce at the end and a hitch step. So right at the end, I'm boom, and I'm up and I'm forward, moving forward to throw the ball. So when we throw this, three big, four quick, a hitch step, throw. This man is at 22 yards. If it's Freddie Epstein, he's probably at 8 yards. The key is you have to adapt the quarterback to this. So the receiver may go less deep. As an example, when we had Ronaldo Miami playing for us, Ronaldo was coached to go 24 yards. When Dwight Clark was playing, who was all pro, as you know, typically it was 19. Didn't bother Dwight to go 19. It didn't bother Ronaldo, because Ronaldo was a step or two faster than Dwight. And so when we practiced it, that became very important to us, because Joe was going to put that ball up, and it's about a third of the way there when that receiver looks. Now, believe it or not, with Stanford, we can do that, with Stenstrom and the guys he's working with. So what we want is this receiver, when he looks, to look for a ball coming right over his shoulder. When he plants, it's his inside foot, he drives off and comes back. When you throw a comeback pass, you don't throw it to the receiver. You throw it to a spot that basically is 6 feet in diameter right there. We figure that the receiver can adjust to that. So if your guy is dropping back, looking at the receiver and throwing to him, the ball is going to always be late. We're going to get so used to dropping back and throwing to that same spot that the receiver will find it when it gets there. So the ball is not thrown to the receiver, it's thrown to a spot 6 by 6. And we know that. We want the ball to carry to him, so it's critical that we take that hitch step or even two. When I say that, I mean, at the end of the drop, we crossed over bounce, we might take two and throw. But the point is, our body weight's got to be going with it. Just like a guy throwing a javelin or a shot or anything else, you're not about to do it this way. So this is a part of it. So that pass with a man basically split 8 yards, we may increase it on occasion, thrown on time and caught is something that we practice. So what I'm pointing this out for is this is a skill. That is a skill. You isolate those things, you find a way to practice them. Now, somebody would say, what happens if this guy does that and he does that? Well, if we see that before the snap, typically we're going to throw the ball to the tight end. But if we don't see it before the snap, this man starts releases outside, sprints, and then levels off, and the ball is thrown right high over his head, right here, at 16 yards approximately. So that he's avoided this man, and this man has not gotten there. There's a dead area if they rotate. They call this what? Fade pattern, seam pattern, whatever people call it. Point is, that's the adjustment we make a lot of the time. So now, when we recognize that, if we're thinking this side and we see it, all we want to make sure we do is throw it high over his head. Now, if you're throwing a fade pattern, it's thrown, if I'm on this side, safety's coming, corner's retreating, well, I want the ball thrown way over here, even if it's incomplete. The last thing I want here, to my desk, is have the ball thrown inside and he makes a play on it. So it's got to be thrown up over the top on the outside arm. Now, I'm not trying to suggest you got to do this. What I'm trying to suggest is this is the simplest thing in football. But it's been refined for years, and the guy coaching it knows it. So if you have football, you should be able to take it, hopefully, to this kind of level, even if it's a base block, I formation run. Not design a new one, or a new kind of run, or a new formation, or they'll never be able to adjust to this. How many times have you been through the one, they'll never adjust to it? They didn't. But they did it the wrong way. You got all screwed up. So the point is, the simplest of things are brought to the most minute detail and practiced that way. So now if you isolate the skills of your positions, you'd like to think that you've studied your football long and hard, you've listened to others, you've exchanged with others, but you begin to get in this kind of detail as you teach it. These are all coaching points. And then find a way every day to practice this 4 times on each side after everybody's through with practice. That's what we would do. So we talked about the the last 3 plays. We've talked. No, I'm okay, John. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's take about a 3-minute break. I won't get them back in here. These guys are gone if they get a chance to get out of here. So let's take 5 minutes, okay? Then I can keep talking. Hey, question. All right. Well, next thing I'd talk about is like a 5-step drop, which typically is more like what you guys would do. And we have, again, and I don't expect you to adapt this stuff, but we have a 5-step drop, and we can talk about the depth of each step. So if we're going to throw an out, what we call a square out, which you see people do, we very exclude the receiver, but we like to throw it in the short side of the field as in college. The square out is one in which the receiver sprints full speed and crosses over and breaks out the ball thrown. We've all seen it. And we don't, on the square out, plant our foot because we want to keep a rolling start and we don't want to lose our speed. So at 10, the receiver crosses over and breaks out and ends up at 12. Now the way we get that done is to practice. We put a towel right there and he has to go around it. The quarterback takes 5 quick steps. The 5 quickest steps he can take. So he's going to throw the ball 6.5 to 7 yards deep. And he's going to take the quickest steps he can take. When he ends up on his 5th step, he plants his foot, opens up, and throws, because this is all on time. So when we throw our timing patterns in football, the number of steps and the quickness of the throw really become, this for me? Great. Really become important. So for us, when you see Montana do this, of course, we've done it for years, and John Brody really was the guy many years ago that timed a lot of his stuff this way. But at the end of the drop, our right foot hits, and now we just open up for throwing left and throw. So now you practice the foot hitting, opening, and throwing. Now the way we're able to do that is take 5 quick steps. If we took 5 big steps, we would have too much body weight back and we couldn't get the ball. So it's important for us now as we drop to be able to keep our feet up underneath us and take the 5 quickest steps we can take, hit, open, throw. Then of course, I'll get it right with you. Then of course, if the guy's not open, you have to pull the ball back and go there all that receiver. Yeah.
When he's taking that drop, turn it really out, he's still taking it full on. No.
This is the one where your right foot hits and you throw. So we take drops, we throw off our right foot, being right-handed. So after 5 steps, that foot hits. I practice just wheeling right off of it and throwing the ball. That's why we don't split the receiver too far, because we don't want the ball to bounce to him. We know when we throw an out break like that, we don't lead him. We throw the ball right at him. Because if the receiver is going parallel to the football and you lead him, the ball will stay ahead of him all the way through its course. You throw it right at him. But it's 5 quick steps and throw a square out. We like throwing to our left better than our right, because you can throw more accurately on a square out to your left, because you have a little more body control when that foot hits to open up and throw. Throwing to the right, typically, your right foot is too far underneath you, and you don't get off it well enough. So we like to throw the square out to our left. But my point is, the 5-step drop, those are 5 quick steps. Now, if we're throwing an in break, it's 5 big steps, you see? So now if we're going to throw in, we don't have to time it quite so tightly, because the receiver is going to be between the quarterback and the defender. On an out break, the defender can get underneath it. On an in break, he really can't. He can cover it tightly, but he can't. So now we're going to take 5 big steps and a hit step. So now we get back to the Montana technique of 5 big steps, bounce, throw. You see? So breaking in, we can take that hitch step. Breaking out, we'd better not do it if we're throwing short, because if we're bouncing and then throwing, that defensive back makes a hell of a break on the ball. So my point is, when you talk to your quarterback, you have to decide on what to tell him about his steps. Because if he has some reference points, it's going to really help him. If he doesn't have any reference points, one will take big steps, the other will take short steps, and you really won't be able to time your passes very well, because one quarterback will be different than the other. Naturally, the depth of the pattern has something to do with this. Now, if I want to coach a quarterback, as the coach, if he's throwing to his right, I want to stand right here, looking there. That way I can see through him the path of the ball and see exactly what he sees when he throws the ball, and also figure the timing between the two. The last thing you want in your passing game is for the receiver to break before the quarterback is throwing the ball. Because when that happens, the defender has broken with it. The defender's basically going to read the receiver. So receiver breaks, defender breaks, you haven't thrown the ball. The minute both of them are broken, there is a free-for-all for the ball. Both of them are eligible receivers at that point. So the key is that he does not break before he can throw. Or just about as bad is he's set to throw, he's looking, and he hasn't broken yet. That way, the defender, if he's looking back, he sees when the quarterback's going to throw the ball, he starts to make a jump on the throw before the defender, before the receiver knows it's coming. So as a coach, you stand back here and you try to get some facsimile of timing between the quarterback and the and from here you can do it. If he's holding the ball too long, then throwing, you can see it. If the receiver's breaking before he's ready to throw, you can see it. Now, how exacting does that get? The National Football League is the science. High school football, you just want to make sure it doesn't go to either extreme and you not realize what's happening. Because obviously in high school football you don't have the time, you don't have experience with these guys, and so these things aren't quite as exacting, but you better stand here and see how that works out. Because the man covering does not verbally figure these things out. In other words, he's not back there saying, look, I think I see something. He is just playing football. It's kind of like playing basketball. He's playing football. He senses it. He intuitively feels what's happening to him if he's a good football player when he does that. He'll do it. He won't tell you how he knew, but he'll know. So in all your patterns, in practice, you want to stand here and see through that. And you want to adjust the depth here, or adjust the length of the steps here so it works out. You can say, okay, I got it. So you can say, Johnny, take bigger steps if you can, because you're ready to throw the ball before he's ready. Or you can say, Johnny, take quicker steps because you're going to have to get the ball off sooner. So you can vary those kind of things as you coach it. So the simplest of things are help here, and the level of skill you have is depending on, obviously, the guys you got working for you. I can remember I had little, what was his name, Jimmy Abrams playing quarterback at Washington High. Whew, it was Jimmy Ambrose. Oh, no, I mean, there's no way. He'd have had to take a half a step in order to time it. I mean, but the point is, he's a very, works for IBM now, so no big deal. That's grandchildren. But the point is, you're limited by things. And of course, this is just part of that. We had a question.
Guys, when you're talking about the outcome to the left, you're taking a drop step. What do you do with the quarterback so you can see over there?
Well, on the left, you'd like to say you take no more than a half turn. So you're this way. You're crossing over this way to throw left. Now, some people back their quarterback up, which we've never been willing to do. To me, you're asking for all kind of problems. First place, he's going to end up throwing off his back foot. Second place, if anybody breaks in the pass rush, he can't avoid it. He's backpedaling and they're coming. He has nowhere to go. If you get our quarterback this way and he feels it, he can go. But this way, you're helpless. So I think that's just a...
Your team generally use a lot tighter splits than most other people. What is your thinking behind that?
Well, the shorter amount of time the ball's in the air, the better it is for the offense. So we want to shorten the distance, shorten the amount of time that the defender has to adjust. Plus that, people don't practice against it. You see that touchdown pass I threw where John Taylor was tight. People don't practice against that in the passing game. What they want to practice against is a guy spread out wide and a guy standing out there with him, and the old idea is spread them out. The problem with spreading them out is the ball has to travel too goddamn far. I saw Colorado play Iowa State a while back. I was visiting my daughter up at Colorado, and Iowa State had a receiver over here, even when the ball was in his hatch. So what was he doing over there? You could never throw him the ball. He was 50 yards away. Well, with us, our guy would have been right here. So we don't want the ball in the air very long. People don't practice against it very well. And we can get different kind of patterns we can develop in close that other people that just aren't there for you when that guy split way out. The whole idea, man, of spreading them out is a good theory. You know, just like telling the Indianapolis guy, keep your foot on the throttle. I mean, I'm the guy coaching you. I mean, there's a hell of a lot more than that to it. Spreading them out means they're further away from the quarterback. It means the ball has to travel further. Now, how I'd say if the ball travels 5 yards further, the defensive guy can run 2 steps. If he's any kind of an athlete. So you're giving up a step or 2 for every 5 yards. If you want a lot of close plays, split your receiver out. The only thing we would do, if we want to break in, we split out. If we want to break out, we split in. Now, there's all kind of adjustments from there. Plus that, when your split, something Iowa State didn't think of. When you reduce your split, this guy can get over there. And how many times have seen Jared Rice catch the ball or John Taylor breaking this way and then turning up the field and going 60 yards? Dwight Clark made a living of going from a tight receiver over there. So we want to have this guy go to that side of the field whenever we want to. See? We don't want to keep him way the hell out over here, standing in a special stance or something. We want these guys to be able to cover ground across the field. So there's all kind of theories there. So you'll see us one week with a wide split, another week with a tight, and a week. That's just part of the science of the game. But getting back to the steps, this is a way as a quarterback coach or you're as a head coach, you look through and you can tell what you want. Now I've been asked, I'm going to try to reverse this thing. I think it's about to run out here. Got it. I guess I'm going to run out of everything. Previous speaker. The old over and under. Let me try to find a spot here. Clinic directors have fallen.
That was Coach White.
This Coach White? He was running the over and under fumble drill for 30 minutes. Yeah, this is the skill. You've got to learn the skill. Over and under, over and under, over and under. Great. Here's somebody had asked about a play that we've made so successful. Well, there's all kind of obviously defenses, but I'll put one up that. This is no 3-4 they call it, I guess. One of the key plays in high school, college, or pro is the play pass. And that is the very essence of the passing game. It is for us at Stanford. It is for virtually everybody that is willing to give it the time. So the play pass, obviously, is faking a run, then throwing the ball. So one run that we've run at Stanford, one play, would be a trap play in which this man goes there, and this man pulls, and this man double teams, and we trap and put it back and through. The point is, we're going to try to fake that and pull this guy forward. We're going to pull that guard through the line and throw at him. We're going to aggressively block him. We're going to double down hard. So if this guy's been coached, he's going to fly up in that line to stop that trap. So you've seen Montana do this. This man's going to drive at him, depending on who we're playing that week. He'll either stay in blocking, if it's Lawrence Taylor, as you might guess. But if it's someone else, he may bump in for it and say to hell with it and break into the flat. That would be where you'd see Roger Craig. This man must pass protect because we've taken him out of it. These two have these two. So if he blitzed, he'd get him. If he came this way, he'd get him. But these two have him. The guard has him. The fullback runs a full-speed course through here. Nobody touches him. He turns right back and stands here. But the key guy is Dwight Clark. Because Dwight is going to go up 5 and angle in. We're going to take 3 big steps after the fake, but the fake is just a token fake. It's up to the back and hit Dwight 9 yards deep running right there. The guy we've affected is this linebacker. We've got a lot of lines there. But this backer's been pulled forward, opening a hole in his own defense. If this man drops here, we throw to him. If he blitzes, we're throwing the ball. If he goes flat, we're throwing to him. So that would be red right, pass 331, that's slant. And that is a very basic play. Now we would change up, I'll use this fellow's deal here. We would change up if these people were covered. We would change it up because in this case we'd man block it or conceivably be willing to trap it, and the back would have him. But the point is, a play pass, pull this guy up and hit a moving receiver. That is the best single thing there is. And this is where Dwight made his career. In later years, we got good enough so that this man ran